Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel, and here is a headline that you just love to see. This comes from Fox. House Republicans introduce bill to remove SEC Chair Gary Gensler, restructure agency. So, speaking for myself as someone who's been in crypto since late 2017, I have what I subjectively believe to be notable holdings for myself. And after going through a disastrous 2.5 years of this nonsense lawsuit, SEC v. Ripple, I can't tell you how much I appreciate efforts to get rid of Kim Jong-Gensler. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Now, that being said, I live in reality, and I'm going to tell you here some bad news at the outset of the video, and I'll explain what I mean, but I'll explain my rationale for this. But there's about a 0% chance that this bill's going to go through. Almost 0%. And I know that even those putting this bill out know that. And so you could sit there and say, well, what? It's political theater. I've seen that assertion wagered. It's a political theater. Why even do this? Why even do this? Well, I'll tell you why. This is how politics works, like it or not, first of all. But think about this. The court of public opinion is something that matters. And so if this helps to get the word out further, and there is genuine pushback here, even if it's not something that's going to pass, if there's genuine pushback here, spreading the word, and as people learn over time what's happening, and as more and more people jump into crypto, they'll understand that the SEC doesn't have their best interests in mind. This is spreading the message, and if you don't see value to that, I can't help you, son. Of course that is useful. And then what happens? These elected politicians, they're beholden to their constituents, and if what their constituents want as time passes is no longer in sync with what they're offering, they get voted out. Of course this stuff matters. All of this matters. Things can absolutely change. So it's not all a negative message. I'm just noting that this bill as it stands at this particular juncture in time, it's about a 0% chance that it's going to pass. But I still think that this is valuable, and I push back against anybody that says it's only political theater. Well, then all of politics is theater, and fine. If you want, whatever, fine, call it that then. I actually don't care about that. But if your assertion is that it shouldn't be done in this particular instance, I wholly disagree. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So let me tell you what this thing is about, and then I'll tell you why it ain't going to happen. But again, saying that, it's still useful. I'm still glad this has happened. Piece reads as follows. A pair of House Republicans introduced a bill to remove the Securities and Exchange Commission chairman from his post. Rep. Warren Davidson, Republican Ohio, and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican Minnesota, introduced the SEC Stabilization Act that would restructure the SEC and remove Chairman Gary Gensler from his post. The GOP lawmakers point to what they say is Gensler's long series of abuses that have been permitted under the current SEC structure. U.S. capital markets must be protected from a tyrannical chairman, including the current one, Davidson said. That's why I'm introducing legislation to fix the ongoing abuse of power and ensure protection that is in the best interest of the market for years to come, he continued. It's time for real reform and to fire Gary Gensler as chair of the SEC. And by the way, I'll note, although Warren Davidson had said in the past some questionable things surrounding XRP, he's since silenced himself on the topic of XRP. But House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican Minnesota, he has publicly stated that XRP is not a security, and he did so dating back to before the SEC sued Ripple. So he's on the XRP community side on this topic, just to be clear, which is fantastic. The piece continues, and this is from Emmer now. American investors and industry deserve clear and consistent oversight, not political gamesmanship, Emmer said in the release. The SEC Stabilization Act will make common sense changes to ensure that the SEC's priorities are with the investors they are charged to protect and not the whims of its reckless chair. Thank you, Representative Davidson, for leading this important effort to restore sanity at the SEC. And that's the end of the quote from Emmer. Piece continues. Davidson's and Emmer's bill would remove Gensler from his position, leading the SEC, and restructure the commission to redistribute power from the chair to the other commissioners, add a sixth commissioner to the body, and create an executive director position to oversee day-to-day operations. And by the way, I got a chart. So yeah, here it is. I got a chart. This was shared by Warren Davidson on Twitter, so you can see the old structure on the left and then the proposed new structure on the right. So the way that it works now is there are 5 votes. So you've got several commissioners, and then you've got the chair, who counts as the 5th acting commissioner, even though it's the SEC chair. That's the guy in charge of the SEC, of course. And you have an odd number of votes so that, there's no situation where there would need to be some sort of tiebreaker. And so the proposal here is to get rid of Gary Gensler and not have an SEC chair have a vote on any of this stuff. Rather, just add an extra commissioner. So you have they cite it in the article too, but there would be 3 Democrat and 3 Republican commissioners. That's the proposal. And then there's an executive director, which allegedly oversees them, though the executive director is, in this graphic, indicated to be at the bottom. So it's not clear at this point, at least from what I've seen anyway, whether or not that executive director would be the one to play the role of tiebreaker, because if there's an even number of commissioners, you can end up in stalemate, and that's stupid. STOOPID, stupid. So presumably it's the executive director that would play the role of tiebreaker. Anyway, article continues here. Commissioners would still have rulemaking, investigative, and enforcement authority and would be subjected to staggered 6-year terms. Additionally, the SEC Stabilization Act would prevent any political party from controlling more than 3 seats on the commission and would implement a structure similar to the Federal Elections Commission. The SEC declined to comment on the bill. Oh, yeah. Color me surprised, right? Of course they declined. So why isn't this going to pass? Why does this not have a chance in hell? Well, let's get into that. Here's what Attorney Deaton had to say first of all. He said, "It isn't likely to pass, but it sends the right message. Gary Gensler is an agent of the status quo, determined to help the incumbent banks stay in power. His days are limited, whether this bill ever sees the light of day." And I do agree with that sentiment. And somebody asked Eleanor Turt, who is a Fox Business journalist, the following. "Hi, Eleanor. Would this act need approval from Congress? If so, how long does this kind of thing take? Thanks." And Eleanor did respond and wrote, "Yes, it would need to pass the House and the Senate, which means it would need Democrat support." And so I'll pause to note right now, Democrats, and she cites it in her own tweet here, but the current administration from the top down is anti-crypto. And so I don't care what your politics are. If you lean left politically, that's fine. I'm not going to get into that crap on this channel. I'm only going to tackle politics as it pertains directly to crypto and finance, and here it directly pertains to crypto. And so if you want to vote that way, go ahead and vote that way. Just be aware that what you're doing is not in your financial interest as it pertains to crypto. Just be aware of that. And then Eleanor says, "As we saw from that leaked key points memo from the crypto hearing a few weeks ago, Democrat leadership supports Gensler and thinks the SEC is doing a fine job." Folks, I said it before. Look, I'm not a one-issue voter, but politicians' positions on crypto have never been more important to me in my entire life than they are right now. There's so much. My financial well-being, I recognize, is at stake, and there's an entire political party that is against my financial interests. It just is what it is. And I'm not saying that's the case for literally every single Democrat. And there are Republicans also that are against this, I understand. And the previous administration with Trump, horrible for crypto. I just didn't think that, Biden and Gensler would come in saying, "Hold my beer," and then make things infinitely worse. Oh, well, not that I didn't think it couldn't happen. It's that we didn't know for sure how things were unfold. Not that I had some sort of belief that either Biden or Gensler somehow would have made this better. But then anyway, Eleanor also says, on top of this, it would also need to be signed by the President of the United States, who appointed Gensler and has the power to veto. Yes, that's right, folks. So not only is there not sufficient support because the Democrats are in support of Gensler, they just are today. I know, it's disgusting and gross. I'm as grossed out by it as you, but that's the case. And so even if this somehow magically passed, which it won't, you'd have the president veto it because the president appointed Gensler. He thinks he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I guess I made a terrible mistake. Let's get rid of this Gensler guy." Blah, blah, blah. No, that's not going to happen. And so here you have the Senate website, the official Senate website, and they describe how the veto power works. I'm going to cover this part highlighted on your screen. Just to be clear, this is the degree to which we have an uphill battle. I'm telling you, folks, there's about a 0% chance this is going to happen, but that doesn't mean that I'm saying that this effort is useless. We're all talking about it. It spreads the word. Gary Gensler's awful, and it impacts opinion of just people out in the public. That's absolutely fantastic. So anyway, as for describing the veto power, and this is again from the United States Senate website. The power of the president to refuse to approve a bill or joint resolution and thus prevent its enactment into law is the veto. The president has 10 days, excluding Sundays, to sign a bill passed by Congress. A regular veto occurs when the president returns the legislation to the House in which it originated, usually with a message explaining the rationale for the veto. This veto can be overridden only by a 2/3 vote in both the Senate and the House. If this occurs, the bill becomes law over the president's objection. So there you go. Even if there's a veto, it's technically possible that you can send it back to, in this case, it'd be the House, and then you could vote on it again. It's what you're talking about. And that's if it even got to that point. 2/3 vote of approval in both the Senate and the House. The votes aren't there, folks. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. But again, I am happy to see that this exists. Because Kim Jong-Gensler is the absolute worst individual out there. My God, what a disgusting quote-unquote human. Ugh. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say or write, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.